Done ran all through my house. They done tore my baseboards up, tore up everything, looked all in my safe. They not apologetic. They don't want to help me put the doors back on the hinges. They don't want to pay for nothing. And they want to sue me. But it was at that point when they fucked up.
Everybody's talking about you because they think I'm a pedophile, because they think I'm a thief, because your client's disgraceful videos.
That had nothing to do with your brother.
No. And I don't understand why you have some ethics. Well, don't sit and insult me and don't play me like I'm stupid, because I'm not. I'm for it. If your client was having a heart attack or his kids were dying, we'd still run out there. Would you like to yeah.
Hey, it has been established that pedophile police officer baby making Brian Newborn Newland is the one responsible for the money. He's the one running this whole investigation.
She drives herself back to the police station. What happens next?
I put her into the interview room and conduct the interview with her.
Recording?
Yes, well, I thought I was recording, so I got to a point where I had to do that, and then I realized that there was video recording, but there was no audio. So there was a 45-minute interview that had no audio.
Brian turned the mic off in the interrogation room and asked me to suck his Brian Newland had me suck his in the interrogation room. Then he told me about all the young girls that he had sex with in Adams County.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Chambers. I'm just going on record to state that Brian Newland does sleep with underage girls, and because he's part of Adams County, he was in the sheriff's department, then became a marshal. He is definitely known for sleeping with underage girls. I've known Brian. He's been in my family. Well, he used to be in my family. He's not in my family anymore. But yes, it is true that he 100% slept with multiple. It wasn't just one. It was multiple women that he slept with underage. And of course, he gets in no trouble for it. But I just wanted to state that it is true that he does sleep with underage women.
It's a fact. William Newland is a convicted pedophile, and Brian Newland is his brother. After I zeroed in on Brian, I asked about him. Come to find out, he's a large statutory rapist that has sex with all kind of underage girls. He buys them beers and gets them drunk and all kind. That's probably the reason he had to leave the Adams County Sheriff Department, because he beats up his wife and he messed with underage girls, and he had to get out of town and go get a job in Norwood. All of this is their fault. If they hadn't have wrongly raided my house, there would be no lawsuit. I would not know their names. They wouldn't be on my body. They wouldn't be on my home surveillance system. And there would be no songs, nothing. My money would still be intact, nothing. So all of this is their fault.
A group of deputies raided a man's home. Then they turned around and sued him. And a jury just told them, you should have never brought this case in the first place here. Now, here's the consequence I want y'all to think about. Not only did they lose, they amplified the very footage they were trying to go ahead and suppress.
This is the Hill of Justice.
I'm Jerome Hill, former police officer and state investigator, and with me is retired Sheriff Victor Hill. And what we're looking at today is just not the legal loss of what happened in Adams County in Ohio, but its failure in judgment, discipline, and command presence. And the real question comes in afterwards, where was the level-headed decision-making before this even hit a courtroom at all? So let's go ahead and take a look at this, and I want you to understand what's going on. This wasn't just a weak case that we had. This was an avoidable mistake that turned into a public embarrassment. Why? Because law enforcement just doesn't enforce the law. They're supposed to understand it better than anyone in the courtroom. And in this situation, that didn't happen. So this is what happened. We had deputies in Adams County, Ohio. They conducted a raid on Afroman's home looking for the drogas, right? Drugs. The raid is recorded not only on the body cam, but also by Afroman himself, who had it strategically placed throughout his home. And so Afroman later uses the video, the footage, for his music videos. And the deputies sue him for defamation and emotional distress. And the jury just said yesterday, no mas, no liability here. Brother, I know you saw it. What was your thought on that?
Man, let me tell you, this, as the old folks say, there's so much meat on this bone. First of all, what the hell made them think there was drugs in his house anyway to kidnap him? That's what I couldn't get to. How did they even end up there thinking that there was drugs and kidnapping there?
Oh, well, I think that he was playing with the kidnapping portion of it. But the drugs, I mean, he's a weed head.
Okay.
Just putting it out there like that.
Okay. So I get that. But a weed head and a drug distributor is two different things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a whole lot of weed heads out there. And we know a lot of them, we grew up with them. There's a difference between, and I'm not condoning it and I'm not condemning it. That's a whole nother show one day. But let's just say he's a weed head, which you say he is, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Usually a search warrant, we're looking for the distributors, not the weed heads. So again, how did they end up at his house?
Yeah, it is confounding. And of course, what we're trying to say is something doesn't line up here. And if you're law enforcement, you don't file a lawsuit.
Don't.
Right. And then why you don't file a lawsuit?
I'm with you on that, but I'm going somewhere with this. Okay. The first thing that you and I have learned about law enforcement, I think you and I both went into it as the old folks say, bright-eyed, bushy-tail, for truth and justice, the American way, and stuff like that. And then we found out that not all, but there are a group of people in law enforcement and in the court system, cops, prosecutors, judges, that will lie and will manufacture evidence and will do whatever they can to get a conviction, a search warrant, or whatever. Ask me how I know. So that group is there, and we know that. I've just dealt with them and have been dealing with them or whatever. So the first thing I thought when I thought about this is, why are they there with a search warrant? Because usually when you get a search warrant, there's some major trafficking going on. I would love to read that search warrant and see what was there, because I know from personal experience that people will lie to get search warrants. They will lie to get a grand jury indictment. They will put whatever they need to do it. And then we got to get to this judge too. And, judges are supposed to be fair and impartial, and they're not there one way or another. They're just there to make sure everything goes right. But we know that's not the case. A judge can be biased, and he's trying to help get a conviction. So he's working instead of being neutral. I mean, that I've experienced that twice. So I'm just curious how it even got started. And then when they get there, they find no drugs. When they get there, to me, it looks like a bunch of bum fumbling, piss poor policing. Because if you really think you got a drug operation that's big enough to hit with a search warrant, all the professionals know you keep that house under surveillance until you can hit it, because you want to make sure that what you think is in there is still in there, and you want to hit it there. I mean, you don't get a search warrant and hit a house and there's nothing there and you act shocked. It should be done in a timely manner. And if that is leaving the house, there should be guys following to see where it's leaving and where it's going. So the whole thing to me right there sounds silly. It sounds like these group of folks I dealt with in my case. But go ahead.
Let me go ahead and tell you this. I'm going to change the calculus. So what if I tell you that this is in Adams County, about 27 to 28,000 residents are in there. They have a police sworn officers, about 25 to 35 of them. Okay.
Right.
And we're talking about a small rural town that that probably doesn't even have those type of skill sets.
Well, but let me tell you what else they don't have. I'm already sniffing the Robert Ford syndrome right away. For those who don't know what that is, Robert Ford is a guy that killed Jesse James, okay? He wanted to be a famous gunfighter, so he staged a gunfight, which never happened. He shoots him in the back, and then he's like, I killed Jesse James, right? Well, unfortunately, a lot of cops, prosecutors, and judges have the Robert Ford syndrome. They want to get the big grab, the big case. They want to say they got a John Gotti or somebody. And when that doesn't exist, they will make something up just so they'll stage something so that they can make themselves some type of hero. We see I've seen it over the years. Officers get on the radio and sit in a shootout, but they're really just shooting in the air. And these folks, you got to watch them because they'll lie. They'll create search warrants and put probable cause that don't exist. They'll go to grand juries and lie. And he's probably a big target because he's a famous rapper. So if he's a famous rapper living in a small town and they're looking for this big opportunity to do a raid, and you say, okay, he's not a drug distributor, but he's a weed head. He probably can afford to buy more weed than anybody else. And I don't want to call the man a weed head, by the way. I'm actually a fan. I like this guy. But that's probably what we got going here, because there's a lot of people in law enforcement. They're looking for a big name. You get these folks that become prosecutors. They realize that, okay, well, there's 1,000 prosecutors. Nobody knows me. No one's impressed. Okay, well, let me see if I can get a big case. Let me see if I can go after a politician or a celebrity. Mm-hmm. And they will exaggerate and make up stuff just so they can say they get the big, just like this guy that shot Jesse James in the back, Robert Ford. And the sad part, nobody still really knows who Robert Ford is. They probably know more from me through the Robert Ford syndrome in my book. But I think what you're dealing with is some Robert Ford syndrome cops and prosecutors and a judge, because the judge looked like he was clearly upset. And don't think that these judges won't push something the way they want it pushed. If they want a conviction, I mean, you read about it in my book. It looks like we're dealing with the same type of people, the same type of mentality. I
think that you're right about that, but I think that we have to go with the first hard truth first. Uh-huh. This lawsuit was never about winning. It was about emotion. And emotion is dangerous in law enforcement. And we talked about these things before. Because
it was about winning. They wanted some money.
No, they wanted some money, but what spurred them on was emotion, because they got embarrassed. They were embarrassed because this guy created not one satirical video. It was plenty others that they were embarrassed, and it went viral. And they were like, oh, you want to do that to us? Okay, you hurt me. I'm going to go ahead and sue you. And of course they wanted money.
You got to understand, and not all. I mean, you and I served in law enforcement for a lot. There are good, honest people in law enforcement. Sure. But then we got this Robert Ford syndrome group that they're kind of strange. Actually, you were there at my hearing. Remember what the judge said? I don't mind telling you. I watch your social media, and it doesn't appear. What are you watching my social media for? Mm-hmm. And think about this. They're claiming that, hey, you're violating the Constitution, and we're holding constitutional rights, and we got to hold you responsible for something no one ever heard of before a day in their life. I'm the first and only, but yet you're telling me that you're on my social media and you don't like what I'm saying when it's freedom of speech. Same thing that Afroman is saying in his case, freedom of speech. So it's interesting that we have folks in law enforcement, prosecutors, and judges that claim that they're interested in the Constitution, but God forbid you expose them and embarrass them. Now, all of a sudden, they don't want you to have a constitutional right of freedom of speech. I do want to say this, too. When you go into public life, when you become a politician, a judge, a celebrity, or whatever, welcome to the club, buddy. You better get your skin thick, because people are going to say and make up all kind of stuff on you. That comes with the job. Yeah, mm-hmm. I mean, one day I was on the internet, and I ended up on some reptilian shapeshifter site and saw myself up there. I was like, hey, he's a reptilian shapeshifter. I mean, what did I do? Oh my God, I'm gonna sue you. Folks are gonna talk. Even if you're not famous, people are gonna talk about you. Right. And they're gonna come up with all kind of stuff. Right. And you got to be mentally strong enough to move past it. But unfortunately, this is where this case gets interesting. Right. Unfortunately, there are cops, prosecutors, and judges who they feed into it. They watch the media, so they already have this preconceived notion of you anyway, right? So the cops, they see this guy. He's Afroman. He's famous. He has a famous song, Because I Got High. Maybe they heard, this guy smokes weed. And so they already have this stuff. They're not able to just look at facts, but they focus on gossip and conjecture just like anybody else. They read the Inquirer, they watch TMZ, and now all of a sudden, oh my God, we can get a search warrant for them. Oh my God, you're in my courtroom. And they make some of the most asinine decisions based on rumor and conjecture like everybody else, because they already have this preconceived notion, and they're not being fair and impartial and non-biased as we expect people in robes to be.
And that's what we're going to talk about, because once you move from what does the law say, because that is the guardrail, right? To, I don't like how this made me look. You made me look terrible. You lost all types of objectivity. And this is where your problem becomes. So let me go ahead and say this to make this a little bit more for the folks who don't have this type of experience.
Okay.
Good officers, they're disciplined officers, right? They don't react. And certainly they're not going to react to criticism emotionally. That's what we were just talking a little bit about. They assess the risk and they ask themselves, does this hold up in a courtroom? Does this hold up legally? Does this hold up on video? That's what professionalism looks like. And that's command presence. That's part of what you had to exhibit as the sheriff. And that's what's missing here. Somebody should have told them, we can't do this. But if you're in a small town with small thoughts, small ideas, you're not used to this type of stuff.
Jerome, it's not a small town. It
is 27,000 people.
No, it has
I got 27,000 people down the street.
It has nothing to do with being a small town. It's a mentality that's happening right here in Atlanta.
Mentality, 27,000.
The mentality. It doesn't have to be a small town. We have judges here. They write conflicting rulings all the time. It depends on if they want you to win or what they want you to lose. You could send them case law that says this is it, but I don't like this guy and I don't want to dismiss it. So I'm gonna write something that says the case law doesn't exist. This is the mentality that we're dealing with. Not all judges, not all prosecutors, not all cops, but it's prevalent, not just in a small town. I don't think it's because of a small town, because we witness it right here in Atlanta on a federal and state court level. But go ahead.
So what we're talking about is Afroman isn't just state these type of statements. He's making satire. And when you bring satire into the mix, it sits in one of the most protected zones of First Amendment. So what a reasonable person would think that is literally a statement of fact that somebody's joking on them. They're not going to take that serious. That's why this is about, in this case, I understand what you're saying, but in this case, this was about comedy. A big city wouldn't even look at that. They wouldn't.
Yes, they would. Let me tell you something. Look at my social media.
You're talking about that situation.
I crack on the people behind my case every day. And
right,
they're
and they
very
don't do
mad
shit
about it. And I've had attorneys in these cases, hey, don't say anything about the judge. Please don't say anything about the DA. Whatever. That goes on in big cities, little cities. There are folks, remember, first of all, you're talking about people that suffer from the Robert Ford syndrome. So they're willing to make up a case, hoping that they can get some fame and recognition out of it. So they'll come up with a novel prosecution. They'll do whatever. And God forbid they're exposed and you crack a joke on them. They get mad about it and they retaliate about it. I mean, that's what's going on in my case right now. Their feelings get hurt. And it's no longer a First Amendment thing. It's not, people think that, okay, well, this is a qualified immunity. Judges can give qualified immunity to whoever they want to give it to. We've proven that in my case. They give it in one case, don't give it in another. And, it's a small community with lawyers in them. And I actually got connections there. They said, well, they decided they're not going to give you qualified immunity there. Basically, a group of folks decided in the courtroom, judges, we're not giving him qualified immunity because it's him. We want to give it to everybody else, even when people got killed and died, but we're not going to give it to him. That's the mentality that you're dealing with. And I actually heard a judge say, in the last time I was in court, he actually told my attorney, just like you talk about us, we talk about you attorneys too. I mean, he just blurted it out. So we're expecting them to have this fair and impartial stuff, but a lot of them don't. a lot of them can't separate their personal feelings from the law or the facts.
Okay.
Just like these cops. These cops probably were like, hey, we're going to get to arrest Afroman. Oh, my God. We're going to be superheroes.
Oh, I agree with that.
And then it blew up in their face. And then when he made parody out of them, their feelings got hurt.
Oh, and it will continue to be hurt because he's going to make more parody of them because they lost.
Yeah,
and so,
hell, I might get in on this one. This is hilarious.
So let's take it back all the way to 1988. And when I bring it all the way back to 1988, there was a particular case, you know the guy's name, Larry Flint from Hustler magazine. You had like tons of magazines. They're still under your bed now, right? No,
it's you. You talking to me, or you talking about you? Whatever, man. Go ahead.
So let's talk about Larry Flint.
I'm more of a fan of Hugh Hefner. If we're gonna go there, but
okay,
go right ahead. All right. Okay.
So Larry Flint and Jerry Falwell. Jerry Falwell was livid mad at Larry Flint because in Hustler magazines, Jerry Falwell was getting clowned about everything he did. And so guess what he did? Jerry Falwell was like, guess what? Bet. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to sue you. It all went all the way to the Supreme Court. So the case basically went on like this. The Supreme Court said, even it being offensive, exaggerated, or outrageous, it's protected. And as long as it's not claiming real, provable, false facts, public figures cannot recover damages for intentional infliction of emotional distress based on parodies or speech without proving actual malice. And that's the key there. You know who the judge was then? It was the most conservative judge in the Supreme Court. It won by 8-0.
Wow.
Supreme Court Judge William Rehnquist.
Really? Well, again, when you decide to get into public life or you decide to become a cop or whatever, that comes with it. Right. You're going to have to be thick-skinned. You know, the problem to me that I think is hilarious is I can take it, but when I start punching back, people feelings start getting hurt or whatever like that. I mean, you know. Yeah. Yeah. But, we got a lot of wimps in public service now. I mean, you see them on TV crying and having all these emotional breakdowns. And I think you and I already had a discussion how I feel about when a police chief or a sheriff is on TV crying. I mean, you can say whatever you want. You can say, well, they're human too. Listen, these are the guys that are supposed to be hunting the serial killers and the crazy folks when they come to town or whatever. You send a very weak message to them. I mean, if I see a sheriff on TV crying, that's telling me, you know what, I need to go in that county and take over if I was a criminal. Because this dude here ain't gonna do nothing. He's an emotional mess. You know what I'm saying? And that's
and they were crying.
Exactly. And so that's what we got. Exactly. So that's what we got for leaders now. But I mean, you're telling me that you signed up to wear a badge and a gun and go after the most notorious killers that come to town or confront active shooters or deal with serial rapists. And then someone starts making fun of you and you don't know what to do. I can tell you right now. And then wait till people start making fun of you for something that you're innocent of, that you've been falsely accused of. I mean, unfortunately, that's a part of what comes with it.
Right.
So, and you got, and it goes up. That's what people do. And the media has a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
So
you're right about that. And I will tell you this. Now you're exposed. You're embarrassed. You're exposed.
Yeah.
You feel misrepresented. And instead of tightening discipline, you escalate it, whether intentional or not. And now you got backfire coming at you.
I agree.
There's nothing you can do about that.
Right.
Nobody stayed in their lane as a law enforcement officer or as an agency, and particularly leadership. This was supposed to be discipline policing, and discipline policing is quiet. It's controlled. It is intentional. Instead, what we did was these people started chasing headlines and didn't know that headline was going to chase right back at them.
Was going to chase them. Exactly. And we all know armed robbers don't like being robbed. Rapists don't like being raped. Killers don't want to be killed or anyone in their family killed.
Right.
People who bring false charges and prosecutions against others don't want it done to them. it's the mirror effect is just too much for people. And when they most people can't take the medicine that they deal out. And that's if you can't take it, don't give it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Don't get in the boxing ring and you want to do all the punching and then somebody start punching back.
Right.
And now you're all emotional and start crying and don't want to fight no more.
Right. So you're chasing lawsuits over image now. And now what you got in front of you, more than anything else, it handed you more attention. And at this point in time, the case is bigger than it ever needed to be. And it's going to live in infamy for these people. And now the outlets picked it up. This lawsuit gave it all types of oxygen. You lost, which is another L on top of your head. And because the original videos was because we had a sloppy deputy looking at some lemon pound cake.
Well, let's talk about building clearance for a moment. You know, there's a lot of classes on that.
Yeah.
And you know, you're not supposed to be distracted because you got to make sure that you're covering all what they call it, the problem areas.
Yes.
Right.
The blind spots and everything like that.
Distraction.
And how does lemon pound cake start becoming a distraction? You looking at it viciously.
You know, let me tell you this. And I've created a lot of enemies over this, and it's fine. The truth is the truth is the truth is the truth. You know, when I became sheriff, I tried to remove out-of-shape deputies from the office. Okay, it's not because I have anything against out-of-shape people. You and I both know and love a lot of people out of shape. It has nothing to do with it. Right. But my thing is, you don't see them going out for the NFL, and the NFL doesn't even entertain that. If you're overweight and you can't run to the corner store without being out of shape, you do not go out for the NFL. And even if you went out, they're not going to take you on the team. Why? Because being in the NFL requires the ability to run, jump, hit, whatever like that. Okay. And then if you don't perform physically, you get cut from the team. Because if guys like that deputy could get on the NFL, no one would win. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Okay, nothing against him. He's probably a nice guy. But now you're talking about a job that not only is your life in danger, we're not talking about just running down the field with a ball and getting hit and hitting and being tackled. We're talking about guns. We're talking about being able to drive a car at speeds 100 plus and get out that car and be able to run down a suspect that just killed, raped, maimed somebody or whatever and be able to physically deal with them. So you would think that law enforcement would have the same mentality that professional sports have. They would recruit the fastest, the strongest or whatever like that, because these people got to not only be able to protect themselves, but they got to be able to protect others. How can you protect others if you can't protect yourself? Right. So, I mean, if you hire people who can't even protect themselves and you're dealing with a lunatic that's strong and whatever, and they show up, now what? What are we going to do? All run and hold each other? And you see what I'm saying? Right. So nothing against them, but we're dealing with life and death, and we're dealing with trying to give people the best protection that they can have. Right. And when you relax it and you're like, well, you know, we don't want to discriminate. It has nothing to do with discrimination. It has to do with the ability to do the job, the ability to protect and save someone's life. And you can't do that if you can't protect and save your own life.
You know, this is where leadership matters most. And, you know, someone in that chain, someone should have said, this isn't worth it. Because if you take a look at policing overall, it isn't about proving a point. It's about picking the right battles. And these didn't do that, you know what I mean? And where was the investigative standard in this? You know, at the federal and major department levels, the mindset is completely simple. It is don't create unnecessary exposure, period. Don't litigate emotion, period. They did it.
But they do it. And you know, one thing, man, you and I spent most of our career in the streets. A lot of people don't realize it, but cops, we don't spend a lot of time in a courtroom. And when we do, they usually call us in to testify and we leave. We don't get to see the whole beginning to end. Unless you're a deputy doing security in the court, you really don't get to see all of that.
Right.
And you'd be surprised. You know, I really got insight on this through this. People will come up with lawsuits and they will lie to win them.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother story. And they'll make up stuff. And then the judge don't hold them accountable. Even if you could prove, there are things that we could prove that has to be a lie in my case. But no one's holding these people accountable for perjury. But it's obvious we can prove that they're lying. So people feel comfortable and attorneys feel comfortable telling juries lies in order to see if they can get a judgment or in order to see if they can get a conviction. And it didn't work this time.
Yeah.
It didn't work this time. But, I don't know what story they could say that makes sense. You execute a warrant and nothing that you say is there.
Right. That's embarrassing. The footage is clean. So if you got something, it will speak for itself. But guess what? You didn't find nothing there. So don't worry about it. What they did was the footage in itself, whether it's questionable because of the fact that they didn't find nothing, you don't highlight it by doing something like that. That's experience talking. And you don't have any experience.
I can tell you right now that I would love to see the search warrant. I would love to see whatever. I bet you this all started with rumor and gossip, which cops, just like that judge said, just like y'all talk about us, we talk about you, which was a Freudian slip. I guarantee you, we heard about that Afroman guy. We heard this. And of course, people sit around and talk all kind of stuff. And then they decided we need to look at him. We heard about that Afroman. We heard about that Victor Hill guy. We need to look into something. And then when there's nothing there, they want to make it up because they so bad want to say that they went after somebody in power or somebody with a name. And then they come up with the most ridiculous charges. And sometimes, as we know, they can actually get them through. Because if they get a judge to go along with it, that judge will suppress evidence that could show the person is innocent and allow them to do and say things to the jury or whatever. And sometimes judges are successful in getting that done. Ask me how I know.
Right.
That brings this up. Look at this judge here. He didn't thank the jury. That's one thing I was watching. And people noticed that. Why didn't he thank the jury? So you could tell he was mad that they didn't get this verdict that he wanted. And, just like, and I had a case like that too. And that's a whole nother story for another time. But when you got judges that, hey, they're trying to get a judgment against you, they're trying to get a guilty verdict. It just goes to show you the fallacy of the system, which started all the way to a low deputy level where they can just go up and get a search warrant on obviously something ridiculous. Because I still don't understand how a kidnapping and a drug search warrant gets absolutely no drugs and there's no kidnapping victim there. I guarantee if you hear that story of how they got that search warrant, it was some gossip. It was the fact that this guy has a name. And they just went on this Robert Ford syndrome rant and found absolutely nothing and tried to make it into a big case.
Well, I'll give it even better than that. This lawsuit didn't protect these deputies. It exposed them. That's what it did. I agree. And it raises a bigger concern because the fact that it's, when you look for leadership, you're looking for calm, you're looking for it to be logical, disciplined, you're looking for that decision making. They picked a legal heavyweight fight and they lost viciously on this one. And this is what happens. And now you got the public looking at them like, all right, so this is my police department. This is what we have. And you just embarrassed us. You just put them on the map. And I'm sure all these people wanted to go ahead and be under the radar.
What they need to be worried about is another rap song coming out.
Oh, it's coming.
Because if I could rap, I would be making one about that courtroom. Matter of fact, if I could rap, I could think of some prosecutors and judges. I would create something right now.
He might get a Grammy over this.
He might. But that lemon pie rap is pretty good. I like it. It's now in my what'd you call it? In my musical cure of things cue to listen to. Yeah. I really enjoyed it because I always enjoyed that melody anyway.
Right. Yeah. So we'll go ahead and land this plane because this is out of order right now. So many of you are subscribing and certainly do what you can to go ahead and hit the notification button. We really appreciate it. We're growing left and right. This is an embarrassment to, the Adams County Sheriff's Department, not to us. And congratulations to Afroman for having the guts to go ahead and put them and expose this whole situation because it was really cornball situation. So
yeah, if Afroman is watching, if we don't get another rap song out of this, I would be very disappointed. I'm looking for it.
Yeah, we might have to go ahead and tag that when it comes in the description box. All right, brother.
Absolutely. That's
all
right,
man. You brought it. Thank you, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, brother.
All right.